Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, as per your respective time zone. On behalf of Evosys Managed Services team, we'd like to welcome you all to 22B Inventory and Order Management Advisory webinar session. This important session is to keep you fully synchronized with the new features and functionalities as a part of this quarter release which Oracle provides. My name is Hardik Patel, and I'm an Operations Manager here at Evosys Managed Services Department. Today, I'm your host for this session, and I'm glad to introduce my colleague Charmi Agrawal, who's part of our vast supply chain team at Evosys. Today, she'll take us through all the inventory and order management updates for 22B quarter release. Today's session is planned for around 45 minutes, and we'll make sure that we also leave some time to answer any questions you may have. You can use chat or question panel to ask any questions you may have. We have expert with us as a panelist. He will be able to answer any questions you may have. Before we move to today's agenda, let's have a quickly look at the disclaimer. We would like to convey you our approach towards Oracle updates in a very simpler method. We'll be taking you through vital analysis for the 22B updates done by our experts, which will help you incorporating new features and updates easily into your system. We will also sync you on any bugs or known issues if there are any. It is good to have an interactive session, so please do ask any questions you may have at any point of the time or at the end of the sessions. This is to give you a glimpse on how we have crafted the structure of this session. So first thing what you see is list of new features coming into 22B, detailing on features, so you get brief understanding on what new features are all about. The next one is business benefit, important takeaway for you as a decision maker. There are 4 components where we have done in-depth analysis of the features which we are going to present to you today. The first one is impact level analysis, which demonstrates the impact on end user. If it's a low impact, then regression testing can be avoided or not. If it's a high impact, then we need to opt for regression testing. Second one, which is we all are aware that there's some features which are by default auto-enabled by Oracle, and there's some which we need to opt for. And the third one highlights the nature of the feature. There would be certain configuration which may be required, and some can be used without any changes. And the last one, which is a quick win. This term we use to simply convey that what is ready to use by investing minimum amount of time and what requires significant amount of time and effort to make use of this feature. With this, before I hand it over to my colleague, on your screen you'll see the small poll where we'd like to know that which industry does your organization belongs to. This will help us crafting even more fruitful webinars going forward. So we'd be happy to obtain your feedback there. And we'll be closing the poll now on the which industry does your organization belongs to. We'll be closing the poll now, and with this, I'll be handing over to my colleague Charmi, and she'll take you to today's session. So, Charmi, over to you. Unmute yourself, and the stage is all yours. Thank you.
Thanks, Hardik. Hello, everyone. My name is Charmi, and today I'm going to talk about all the 22B releases or updates which have come up for the inventory and the order management areas under supply chain management. So if I'll just move forward. So here is a small analysis or a statistics of all the features which have come up. So there are around approximately 29 new features under the supply chain management, which involves both inventory and order management. And on the right-hand side, we can see a graph here wherein it says around 19 of these updates are not quick wins. 6 of them are quick wins, which have a default and the configuration is null. The next are 2 updates, which are quick wins, default, and the configuration is a yes. And the next 2 are not quick wins or quick wins, which have opt-ins. I'll move forward. So the very first area which we'll talk about are the new features that are quick wins, default with no configuration. So here the very first update or the 22B release update which we have is reserve common inventory for project orders using inventory reservation FBDI. So this update involves the FBDI, which is a file-based data import sheet. So earlier we could reserve on-hand material only against the exact destination which was provided. Now with this update, we can also reserve the common on-hand stock, which is there in the organization. So the process will first reserve against the project material which we have, and if there is any less stock there, then it will reserve against the common on-hand stock which is available in the inventory. This feature provides you the ability to efficiently use both the project designated and the common on-hand material which we have in the inventory. So in this screenshot here, we can also see that we can enter the supply project number, the supply task number in the FBDI sheet and load it for the reservations. We have also mentioned the business benefit here, which relates to better planning of stock and the impact analysis. So the impact level is a low level impact. There is no need to enable this feature. No configuration is required, and it is a quick win. Moving on to the next update which we have, which is the view additional lot columns in the inventory subject areas in OTBI. So OTBI basically refers to the Oracle Transactional Business Intelligence, and it basically lets you create real-time and ad hoc reports under various subjects areas for reporting purposes. So in this update, there are various columns or areas that have been added, which we have mentioned here, which are grade, grade description, retest date, maturity date, hold date, expiration date, etc. So these columns are now available in the inventory balance real-time and inventory transactions real-time subject areas. So we can search for these subject areas and add in the necessary columns as shown in this screenshot. The business benefit, so it basically leads to better reporting options. And if we talk about the impact analysis, then again, this is a low level impact. There is no configuration required. There is no need to enable this feature, and it is also a quick win. Moving on to the next update, which we have is the reserve unreleased orders using the FBDI. So there can be instances in case of emergencies or any natural disaster that there will be a need to reserve certain supply of priority orders. So before releasing the orders to the warehouse. Previously, you had to create these reservations manually using the manage reservations and picks page. But now with this update, you can create these reservations using the file-based data import process. This feature also helps you to efficiently create a large number of reservations for incoming supply of on-hand quantity and expenses. As you can see in the screenshot, so this is a screenshot of the FBDI template. Here we can mention the fulfillment 9 number to create the reservation for the same. And talking about the business benefit, then it basically leads to better stock planning in case of any emergencies. And the impact analysis, so this is a medium impact level, and again it doesn't require any configuration. There is no need to enable it, and it is a quick win. So moving to the next one, which is use query by example to search serial number in manage item quantities page. So this is in the screenshot, we can see the manage item quantity page. And in case we want to search the details of a specific serial number for businesses wherein goods are serialized goods, then we can query it in this particular box here, and we can check in the details for the same. So the serial number status, the context of it, the sub-inventory, locator, and lot details. Talking about the business benefit, then this basically leads to a better user experience. So in case we want to search for a specific serial number and the details regarding it, we can come to this page of manage item quantity and search for the serial number. And the impact analysis, so again, this is a low level impact. There is no need to enable it, no configuration is required, and it is a quick win. So next we have view billing UOM name column in the receiving transaction subject area in OTBI. So again, this update relates to the OTBI, which is the Oracle Transactional Business Intelligence, wherein a new column has been added, which is the billing UOM name. And this is available in the receiving transaction subject area. So let's say in case we want to create a report to check what was the billing UOM for a particular transaction which we have done, then we can check it from this particular area. So in the screenshot here, we can see that this is the new column, billing UOM name that has been added. And this is the subject area, which is receiving transactions real time, from wherein we can add this column here. And talking about the business benefit again, so this leads to better reporting options and the impact analysis. It's a low impact level with no configuration required, and it is a quick win. Okay, so moving on to the next update. So this is similar to the previous update wherein we have the view additional lot columns in the receiving subject area. So which we saw as in the before slide that we saw that the subject area was different. In this we can check again the grade description, retest date, maturity date, hold date and expiration date in the receiving in transit shipment real time area. So previous one which we saw, the subject area was different. That was inventory balance real time and inventory transactions real time subject area. So there are two subject areas from wherein we can add in these particular columns and make a report out of it. So again, the business benefit here is better reporting options, and the impact analysis is similar to what we already saw, that it is a low level impact. There is no configuration required and it is a quick win. So moving forward, so the next set of features which we have are quick wins that are default with configuration. So the very first update which we have here is the use the new high volume inventories valuation subject area in OTPI. So let's say if you have a very high volume of inventory transactions, you can take advantage of the high volume valuation subject area which is present in the OTPI. You can use the subject area in your reports to analyze your inventory valuation, as it is a very key information for any enterprise. So there are various reasons to it. Inventory turnover, so how many times you have replaced inventory which is sold. Inventory aging, so what inventory is slow moving and how much of your working capital is invested in the business. And the next is inventory carrying cost. So what percent of your total inventory value does your maintaining your inventory storage? So these are certain importance which we have for inventory valuation. And in this screenshot, we can see that in order to run this particular process in the OTBI, there is a area here which is cost reports processor. We need to enable this particular area in order to see the details in the OTBI subject area. So the business benefit here, it is better reporting options and the impact analysis. So again, this is a low level impact. There is no need to enable this feature, but certain configuration is required and it is a quick win. So moving forward. So the next update which we have is specify a value set for the domain type in your matrix class. So earlier, in order to define the pricing matrix in the order management module, there was no option to give the reference of the value set. And we had to use a lookup for the same and accordingly define the pricing. So with this update, we can give the reference of the value set and then create the pricing matrix accordingly. So what would be the advantage? Then this saves time, as now we don't need to add in any additional lookup in order to create the pricing matrix. So in this screenshot here, we can see that in the domain type, we have the option of value set. We can give in the data type and we can specify the value set from which we want to derive the pricing matrix. And the business benefit here is choose from wider range of attributes. So this gives you the benefit to choose from a various value sets that might have been created for various purposes. And the impact analysis. So again, this is a low level impact. There is certain configuration which is required. There is no need to enable this feature and it is a quick win. Moving to the next one. So these are new features that are quick wins and are opt-ins. So here the very first update which we have is update the import status of intercompany receivables invoices using an enhanced scheduler process. So this is basically the enhancement of the existing import auto invoice process which we have for the intercompany invoices. So when we run this process, it automatically triggers the process of update intercompany receivables invoice import process to update the financial orchestration task and invoice data for the business. So this in the screenshot, we can see that this is the process update intercompany receivables invoice import and the parameter. So we just need to give in the process ID in order to run this particular process. And talking about the business benefit, then this basically leads to a better processor. So this is applicable to businesses wherein a large number of transactions are involved. And the impact analysis. So again, the impact level is low. This needs to be enabled. So this is an opt-in feature. There is some configuration required and it is a quick win. Moving to the next one, which is high volume order promising. So in this feature, the Oracle Order Promising Cloud provides us an enhanced server, which basically helps in situations wherein the business needs to scale the demand and continue to operate even during any unforeseen situations. This new update will reduce operational overhead, which will make supply and reference data updates immediately available. And with this process, we would not require to run the refresh and restart order promising server process, and this can be run automatically. The business benefit. So again, this leads to an efficient processor. So for the businesses that have huge number of transactions involved, they can use this particular update for better promising. And the impact analysis. So again, this is a low level impact. There is an opt-in feature, so we need to enable that opt-in feature. There is some configuration required and it is a quick win. So moving to the next one. So next we have our new features that are not quick wins. And the very first feature which we have is release recommendations for transfers of project supplies. So there can be situations wherein the on-hand inventory or the purchase orders which we create would be dedicated to a project or a task. And in this scenario, only the on-hand supply that matches this project and task can be used to satisfy the demand. But the problem with this approach is that this may lead to situations wherein we have excess supplies for some projects. So there can be situations where some projects have more number of inventory available than it is actually required. So in order to reduce these inventory costs, it is useful to check for excess supplies across projects prior to ordering the new supply. And with this update, The result of such a plan will be to produce a recommendation to move supplies from one project with excess to other with a shortage. So this update basically will help move the goods from one project to another in cases there are any shortages. And talking about the business benefit here, then it leads to better planning since we'll be able to reduce the inventory costs which are there, and we'll be able to easily move the goods from one project to another in case of any unforeseen situations. And the impact analysis, so this is a medium impact level. There is some opt-in feature, so this needs to be enabled, and there is no configuration required, but this is not a quick win. Moving to the next one. So the next update is use the inventory attribute transaction request REST resource. So let's say if you are using an external project planning system that recommends you to reallocate your goods across projects to ensure that you meet the project deadlines, then you have the ability to quickly adjust the project designations of your on-hand balances. So with this update, we can use the inventory attribute transaction REST resource. So this is a REST API, which basically updates the project and the task assignments for the on-hand goods. So in cases we want to update the project assignments or the task assignments that are assigned to a particular inventory, then we can use this REST API. The business benefit, so it improves integration. So this leads to a better integration in cases we use this REST API. And the impact analysis, so this is a medium level impact. There is an opt-in feature, so we need to enable this. There's some configuration required, and it is not a quick win. Moving to the next update. So the next update is capture lot and serial numbers for work order destination receipts. So let's say while receiving, we want to capture the lot and the serial number details of a work order receipt, then we can use this particular update. And we have also given an example here that if we place a requisition for a machine part, which is basically damaged, then while receiving it, we can specify the lot and the serial number details to identify the products more effectively. So these are the screenshots mentioned here. In the receive lines, we can receive the goods and click on actions and enter the lot and serial number details. So this basically improves the identification of goods as the business benefit. We'll be able to identify goods in a better way and receive them by adding the lot and serial number details. The impact analysis. So again, this is a medium impact level. This is not an opt-in feature, so there is no need to enable it. There is some level of configuration required, and it is not a quick win. Moving on to the next update. So again, this update is similar to the previous update, which is capture lot and serial numbers for expense destination receipts. So similar to the previous update, we can capture the lot and serial number details for the expense receipts, which are there for either a put away transaction or inspection required transaction. And one example which we have given is that let's say we procure a machine, let's say a forklift machine, and we plan on retaining it as an asset in the balance sheet. So we can capture its lot and serial number details for better visibility. And similar to the previous slide, the business benefit would be we'll be able to identify the goods in a better way, receive the expense destination type goods by giving the lot and serial numbers to them. And the impact analysis, so this is similar to the previous slide. This is a medium impact level. There is no opt-in feature required. Some level of configuration is definitely required here, and this is not a quick win. Moving to the next update. So this refers to allow changes to locator settings on inventory organizations that have a no locator control setting. So this is applicable for the existing inventory organizations which are not locator controlled. So with this update, we can basically update them and change them to the determined at sub-inventory level. But there's just one catch to it, that the existing sub-inventories cannot be altered. But in cases new sub-inventories are created, then the locator controls can be added to them. So let's say in cases wherein earlier the inventory organization was not locator control, but because of certain business requirements, we now want to make it a locator control organization. Then with this update, we can do the same. Business benefit, better identification of goods. So as mentioned, if the goods are locator control, then it will basically lead to better identification of goods while receiving them. And the impact analysis. So again, this is a low level impact. There is no opt-in required, so there is no need to enable this feature. There is some configuration which will be required, and this is not a quick win. So moving on to the next update. So the next update is use sales order line close date as the COGS, which is cost of goods sold, recognition transaction date. So this update is valid for businesses which use a third party billing system, and they basically rely on a proof of delivery to recognize the COGS or the revenue, which is the cost of goods sold. So also when you have to ship a sales order, then after shipment, the order goes into a wait task and waits for a proof of delivery. So once the business receives the proof of delivery, then the sales order line gets closed. And with this update that we have, the system recognizes the revenue on this closing date. The business benefit would be better identification of goods. So as mentioned, if this update is being followed, we can better identify the goods in order to receive them. And the impact analysis. So this is a medium impact level. There is no opt-in feature required for the same. Some configuration is required, and this is not a quick win. Moving to the next update. So the next one is configure a standard currency as a pricing basis for intercompany flows. So again, this is valid in cases where intercompany transactions are involved. So basically for those businesses which are involved in intercompany transactions, and you want to maintain the uniformity within the organization. So this update can be used. So in that case, we can set up a standard currency, which basically invoices to get the invoices of the intercompany transactions. And this is useful for organizations that have multiple businesses, and they want to maintain uniformity across the businesses. And in the screenshot, we can see that the currency option, here we can select standard currency and given this currency for which we want the standardization. Again, the business benefit here is improved standardization. So in case we want to maintain and increase the standardization across the businesses which we have, then we can use this particular update. And talking about the impact analysis, so this is a medium impact level. There is no opt-in required. Some configuration will be required, as we saw here, which is the currency option, the standard currency that we want to get the transactions in, and whether it is a quick win or no. So this is not a quick win. So moving on to the next update. So this is use the current item cost as a pricing basis for intercompany transactions. So this is similar to the previous update which we saw relating to the standardization. But this is again valid for intercompany transactions wherein we want to calculate the price based on the item cost. So at the time of shipment, the item cost will be considered for transfer price calculations for the intercompany transactions. So in cases we want to consider the item cost for various transactions or various intercompany transactions which we have, then we can use this particular update. And in this screenshot, we can see that in the accounting transfer price area, we can select the item cost basis in order to use this particular function. The business benefit, again, it improves standardization. So it is more useful to businesses which have a lot of transactions involved and they want to maintain uniformity amongst them. And the impact analysis. So this is a medium impact level. No need to enable this particular feature. There's some configuration which will be required, and this is not a quick win. So moving to the next update which we have. So the next update is keep the dates for your sales order and purchase order synchronized. So in this update, if we, let's say we need to update the shipment date, the delivery date or shipment method on a purchase order that is manually created, or it is an open purchase order that we want to revise or we want to create a revision on the same, then with this feature, it will automatically update these values on the sales order line. And it also adds the reason for the change on the sales order line. And it applies to various types of items we've mentioned here, that is standard item, pick to order item, assemble to order, or items that are part of a shipment set or kit. And in this screenshot here, we can see in the manage order lookups area, if we want to change the reason for the scheduling, then we can use this particular task and change the reason for the same. And talking about the business benefit, then this leads to better planning. And in cases we want to make certain revisions or changes on the purchase order, they will automatically get reflected on the sales order which we have created and basically let the customer see it. Talking about the impact analysis, so again, this is a low impact level. There is no opt-in required. Some configuration would be required, and this is not a quick win. Moving to the next one, which is send parallel approval requests for sales order. So this relates to the order management approvals. And till now, the approvals in order management were only in cases of serial approvals. So serial approvals basically means that we were sending requests to one user, and when that particular user approved the approval, only then we were sending it to the other user. But with this update, we can now send in parallel approvals, which is approval requests to more than one person at the same time. So there is also the function of voting percentage involved here, and hence we can determine the level of approval outcome that will come from every approval. And the business benefit here is better planning. So we can plan in the approvals in a better way. We can choose whether we want to make it a serialized approval or a parallel approval, and also set in the voting percentages. Talking about the impact analysis, then this is a medium impact level. Again, there is no need to enable it. The configuration, so there will be some amount of configuration which will be required, and this is not a quick win. So the next update is order management bug fixes. So there are certain bug fixes which have happened. This particular bug relates to the sales order creation. So whenever we import a sales order, except the method of REST API, there are two attributes involved here, which is customer ordered attribute and customer orders enable attribute. So in cases we want to create a sales order, then it is required that both these attributes on the item should be set as yes. And let's say any one of these attribute is set to no, then we won't be able to create the sales order for the same. So it is required that both these attributes, which is customer ordered and customer order enabled, is set as yes for the items. The business benefit, better management. So let's say in cases wherein we want to ship a particular item and create a sales order for the same, so we can make these changes. So we can make these two attributes as yes and ship the goods. The impact analysis, so this is a medium impact level. Again, there is no opt-in required. Some amount of configuration will be required, and this is not a quick win. Moving on to the next update. So this relates to use REST API to update project attributes on transfer orders. So basically, in cases we want to update the project attributes which are there on the already existing transfer orders, then we can use this REST API and update the project attributes. And here we have mentioned two things, which is we can maximize use access supply. So we can maximize the supply in cases we want to update the project attributes and minimize the cost of carrying the excess inventory. And the business benefit for the same would be easy update of information. So with this REST API, we can instantly update the project attributes on the transfer order, and this reduces time as well as the costs. The impact analysis, so this is a low impact level. There is no need to enable this feature. There will be some configuration which will be required, and this is not a quick win. Moving on to the next update. So again, this update is similar to the previous update which we just saw. In the previous update, we had a REST API to update the project attributes on the transfer order. And in this update, we also have a file-based data import sheet. So the FBDI sheet, we can use the FBDI sheet in order to update these project attributes on the transfer orders. And the information is same that with this we can minimize the cost and maximize the excess supply for transfer orders. And talking about the impact analysis, so previously similar to the one which we just saw, this is a low level impact. There'll be some configuration required. There'll be no need to enable this feature, and this is a quick win. Moving on to the next one, which is release recommendations for purchase orders that don't originate from Oracle supply planning. So with this update, basically if we or the Oracle order supply planning module determines that a purchase order needs to be rescheduled or cancelled, which includes the purchase orders generated outside the regular planning process, then that is possible. Earlier, what used to happen is if there'll be any cancellation or rescheduling, recommendations were not processed in the Oracle Fusion Cloud. But now with this update, we can release the recommendations to the Oracle Purchasing Cloud. The business benefit for the same. So again, this leads to better planning. So we'll be able to better manage the inventory or the goods which we have on stock. And the impact analysis. So this is a medium impact level. There'll be some configuration which is required. No need to enable this feature. And this is again not a quick win. So moving on to the next one, which is control shipment cutoff times by carrier and destination. So there can be situations in which the last carrier has left with the order that you receive. and at the same time we receive a new order to be shipped. With this update, what we can do is we can set in the cutoff time for the carriers. So Oracle GOP will then compare the cutoff time with the current time that is there. And if the current time is later, then it will automatically set in the shipment date to the next day which is available. And in this screenshot, we can see that for the shipments or the carriers, we can define the shipment cutoff time. And then the system compares this cutoff time with the current time which we have and basically determines the shipment date for the order. And the business benefit. So this leads to better planning and management. In cases we know what would be the cutoff time for a particular carrier, then automatically we'll be able to decide the scheduling and the shipment dates, which will ultimately lead to better planning and management of goods. And the impact analysis. So again, this is a low level impact. There'll be some configuration. So one of them being this shipment cutoff time, we'll need to mention against the carrier. Need to enable. So there is no need to enable this feature. And this is not a quick win. Moving on to the next update. So the next update is create new supplies based on earliest state constraint. So there can be situations in which we need to temporarily stop the production or orders of a particular item. So for this, we can set in the earliest supply creation date, and the system will show the recommendations only after the specific date, which is mentioned for production. So in the screenshot, we can see that we can mention the supply date, and let's say we do not want any orders until this particular date. So the system will value it and create orders only after the date which we mentioned. And again, the business benefit here would be better planning and management. So there can be cases wherein we do not want to supply a particular item or an inventory item, then we can use this particular update. The impact analysis. So this will be a medium impact level. No config, so no need to enable it. There'll be some configuration. Let's say which we just talked about the date. So the supply create date that we'll need to mention, and this is not a quick win. Moving on to the next update which we have. So the next is respect organization specific item substitution rules. So we create substitution rules for those items which can be substituted with one another in cases there is a shortage. So previously we could only set up these rules in the master or the IMO as we call it. But with this update, we can also set in the substitution rules for each inventory organization. So this is basically the child orgs which are available. And this increases the scope of the item substitution. So with this update, we'll be able to create more substitution rules, and this will basically help in better planning and management of the inventory stock level. And the business benefit here, which we have mentioned, is better execution of tasks. So in cases wherein we want to substitute the goods for one another, then we can use this substitution rules and create the sales order for this. And the impact analysis. So again, this is a medium impact level. There'll be some configuration which is required, like creation of the substitution rules. There is no need to enable it, and this is not a quick win. Moving on to the next update, which we have is plan counter sales orders. So counter sales is getting very common these days, wherein we directly sell the goods to the customer and we do not do the picking and the shipping for the same. So with this update, Oracle Order Management Cloud provides us the ability to create these sales orders, which do not require the picking as well as the shipment. And these orders can be directly invoiced. So the business benefit again here is better planning. So in cases there is counter sales involved and we do not require to pick and ship the goods, then we can use this particular update and directly create the invoices for the same. And the impact analysis. So again, this is a medium impact level. There'll be some configuration which is required. This is not an opt-in, so there is no need to enable it. And this is not a quick win. And now moving on to the last update which we have here, which is support alternate resources and substitute components in primary work definitions. So, in cases wherein the primary resource isn't available, so some manufacturing units have other resources that can perform the same job. With this update, we can substitute the resource in cases where the primary resource is not available. And they can also recommend using other resources if the primary component does not meet the demand on time. And the benefit of this particular approach would be that it will be time saving and it will also reduce the costs that are involved in order to produce the items and goods. Then the business benefit. So again, it will lead to better planning. So in cases we have certain alternatives available, then the business or the system can suggest these alternate resources, and this will ultimately reduce the time as well as the costs that are involved. And talking about the impact analysis, so this is again a medium impact level update. There is no need to enable it, so this is not an opt-in feature. There'll be some configuration which is required. And if we talk about quick win, then this is not a quick win. So yeah, so I think these were all the updates which are there and which we have in the 22B update of inventory and order management. And the rest, I think I'll hand it over back to Hardik.
So thank you, Chami, for the wonderful insights. So before we end today's webinar, we would like to know on the scale here that your area of interest, whether it's technology, innovation, managed services, value-based analytics, and we'll also check meanwhile while you can help us with the poll. We can check if there's any questions we have on the question or chat panel as of now. And if you do have any question right now, we're more than happy to answer them. And while you're feeding your replies in the poll, we'd like to inform you that we'll be sending you the HTML pager wherein you'll find a link. Upon clicking that link, it will take you to the Evosys website where you'll find the complete repository of all the sessions, the previous ones, so from supply chain, which was procurement, and today's session as well. And the PDF presentation will be there along with the recording of it. And so you can make use of that. You can pass it to your colleagues. So which should be ready in a couple of days' time, and you'll be getting an email of the same. So we'll keep you informed on that. We'll be closing the poll for now. And before you leave us, with just last question we have it for you is how we did in today's session on the scale of 1 to 5, so that we can improve it going forward. So I'd be happy to obtain your feedback on this poll question, please. Again, if you have any questions on today's session, or if you need any further help or any one-to-one connect, you can reach out to the dedicated project managers or the team leaders or a consultant and pass a message to us, and we'll be happy to arrange that for you. Thank you for the feedback on today's session. We'll be closing the poll, and there are no questions as of now. If you do have, you can ask us right away. So the chat or question panel. If not, we'll be ending today's session, and you'll find all the sessions which you can see on the screen on the email which you're going to receive in a couple of days' time. All the recordings and the test script for the HCM and finance webinar, everything will be they're loaded under one page only. And we have upcoming session for benefits and compensation coming tomorrow from HCM, and a PPM project portfolio management is also arranged for tomorrow. So if you want to pass the message to your colleagues and if they want to be part of it, we're more than happy to welcome them. And with this, we'd like to thank you everyone for your important time today. And thank you once again all for attending the webinar.